Hi, everyone. Also, a warm welcome to the people watching us from home. Also, for those watching us from home, you can feel free to ask questions through the link that will be in the comments on YouTube. Today, we're hosting you, a Vice President of Engineering at TomTom, who will tell you all about the impact of ChatGPT on you, basically. So, yes, give it up for you.
Thank you for having me here today. It's a pleasure to be here. And good morning or good afternoon for the people that's online. Great to see so many people here in person as well. I'm super excited to be here and talk about the new advancement about ChatGPT. We're users of ChatGPT, and we aim to have more applications of ChatGPT within both how we build TomTom products and the TomTom products themselves. And feel free to ask questions and stop me anytime, and we'll also ask some questions of the audience. All right, so let's get started. With this audience, I figured I don't have to explain what ChatGPT is. Let's just dive right in. So before that, a bit of a self-intro. So I'm currently leading engineering teams at TomTom, building what we call dynamic location intelligence. And these would cover products like map features. So if you're driving on a stretch of the road, what is the legal speed limit? Am I speeding? How many lanes are there? If I'm supposed to take a left turn 2 blocks from now, should I start to make that left lane shift now or wait until later? If I wait, can I still make that turn? If I'm driving on a highway, I have an exit coming up. Which lane should I stay at? If I'm staying in a slow lane, I might be blocked by a slow car. If I'm making that change too slowly, I may miss my exit. Or I risk cutting off like 10 lanes of traffic if you're driving in the US. So that would be dangerous. There are also important features like roadworks, like maybe a bump, pit, I think it's a hole on the road that would be dangerous. So we warn the drivers of such dangers coming up so they can drive more comfortably and safely. So before that, I worked in a bunch of tech companies, including Microsoft. I used to work on Bing, the search engine, and now it's becoming more empowered by AI these days. I've also worked for tech companies like Uber and Airbnb. So at Uber, I worked on making map features for Uber. Airbnb is a two-sided marketplace where I worked on infrastructure and data infrastructure. And then I had the opportunity of working for Uber again, this time on self-driving. When Uber sold its self-driving unit to a company called Aurora, I then landed in Aurora. And that's my history before joining TomTom. I've been with TomTom for about a year and enjoying every day of it. So I can give some of this, like I got my PhD, I started with statistics with application in biology, and then pivoted to doing more software engineering. And then I was born in China. You can calculate how many days those were. Then I spent a lot of my adult life working and studying in the US, and now here I am. Only 1 year in Amsterdam, and also enjoying it so far. All right, so ChatGPT. Very exciting application, and one of the fast, if not the most fastest growing applications. So only 5 days for ChatGPT to have 1 million users. And that took Instagram 75 days and Spotify 150 days. If you think about the application of ChatGPT, it's not even that flashy. The UI is chat. And Instagram is Instagram. So there's something magical about ChatGPT. Human has yet to see an application getting such wide adoption this fast. What does that mean for us? Let me first ask this question to the audience. What does it mean for you? What's your experience with ChatGPT so far?
We don't bite, we promise.
It seems both incredible in how much it can do and also almost a bit scary, especially in the way of like how good it already seems at writing code so far. So like thinking of where it could lead us in 5-10 years to the future and what that would mean for our jobs is like both exciting and scary.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi. I also think it's very helpful because Google has, of course, been incredibly helpful with finding things. And now you can simply ask the AI and you can get like advanced results. And it's just going to be helpful looking up stuff and asking it questions.
Yeah, indeed. It's good at answering all kinds of questions, whether or not it knows the right answer. It will give you some answer.
Yes.
So that's also a fun part that we'll talk about later on. So indeed, the large language models, which ChatGPT is a part of, has been advancing really fast. I took this image from the internet, and this was from September of last year. You can already see that it's missing a lot of the latest advances. So it's already out of date. What this slide is aimed to show is that a lot of the tech companies invested heavily in developing the capabilities using large language models. ChatGPT is just one of them. It's focusing on chatbot, but there are applications in imagery, in videos, and audio. So at some point, I think these multimodal AI would come together in some fashion that enrich our lives. It is advancing so fast that I'm not going to venture a guess at this point where it's going to land in 6 months. So let's see. So this slide is showing some of the applications with large language models, and then the number of the size of the models that we see. So to train such a model, it takes a large amount of training data and then lots of money. Also, a question for the audience: how much money does it take to train one ChatGPT?
Did you mean one ChatGPT?
So train it once. How much money does it take to train it? Given, yeah.
Maybe around 1.5 mil. Or
Good
is
guess.
it?
Good guess. So people are just estimating this. I don't think OpenAI actually released the numbers of exactly how much it takes. Based on the size of the model, the rough size of the training data set, the estimated cost to train it would be $66.5 million to train it once. So it's a pretty expensive model to train. This is also posing some interesting questions for us in the industry. Now, these bigger tech are able to afford the size of the training data and the infrastructure to do this level of training, 6.5 million once. Imagine in the development phase, how many times you need to iterate before you get something so good. So interesting problem. But the good thing is that we don't need to train ChatGPT in order to benefit from the capabilities of ChatGPT. Even the vanilla version of ChatGPT or GPT-3 is already like super powerful. It can be helpful in a variety of ways. And even if vanilla version is not good enough, there are fine-tuning that we can do with the limited training data that we provide, and that is not too expensive. So let me start by a case that I think I've heard in the audience. ChatGPT can do coding, and it can do coding quite well. Just the other day, I was in a coding interview with one of our candidates. As soon as the question got posed, I was a shadower. Someone else was asking the question. So I see the question prompt. I immediately posted it into ChatGPT and said, give me the answer of this, and then line by line comments. So that made things very easy. I was shadowing the interview by being an observer. So I was able to observe both the person asking the question and the interviewee answering the question. And at some point, they got stuck on debugging. Since I have the right answer right there, I was able to say, OK, here, you forgot to update this variable. And this is why it was wrong. So by just having a reference here, it does help us code faster. There are a variety of ways we can use the coding capabilities in ChatGPT. Asking it to code something up for you, this usually just works a lot of the time. Even if it doesn't, I have a concrete use case where the first version of suggested code from ChatGPT uses a paid API. I don't want to pay. I'm just doing prototypes. So I asked ChatGPT again, OK, give me a free version. Then it gave me the free version, and it's fine. It works well. So I really appreciate that aspect of ChatGPT where you can really chat with it by giving natural language prompts, and it remembers the context of the conversation. So a common application would be it helps with coding. It gives you boilerplate, sometimes more than just boilerplate code, and allows you to focus on the logic that you're trying to implement. It can also help with debugging. There are lots of cases where you can just paste in your code that's not working for some reason and say, okay, I intend to do this, it doesn't. Help me figure out why. And it does. A lot of the time, it points out where the bug is occurring, what concept you may have gotten wrong. So my own application is, I don't work that well with JavaScript. I work with JavaScript once in a while, so I don't remember all the syntax. I don't remember how it actually works. And it's very easy to get into all kinds of situations where it doesn't work for me. And ChatGPT was teaching me how to code in JavaScript again. I find that very helpful. And for people also just starting out in code, have ChatGPT explain line by line how does the code work for us can be super helpful. While it's good to get someone to explain this to us in person, we don't always have that luxury. When our classmates are busy, then asking ChatGPT is quite good. And most of the time, it gives us the right answer. I would say also it makes me feel less guilty about asking ChatGPT these kinds of questions all hours of the day. Imagine you're debugging at the midnight, right? Your classmates may be asleep, and ChatGPT is always there. Adding comments is another one that can often get ignored. When we write code, I maybe have written something a year ago. Now I go back and look at them. Who wrote this? What idiots wrote it this way? Why? If I don't write enough documentation and comments, it's quite easy to just forget what was the thought process back then. Sometimes, not always, sometimes I ask the ChatGPT to help me comment on the code, to help me remember what's the thought process. And it can also explain what the code does. And OpenAI and Microsoft already knows the power of such interactivity with ChatGPT or GPT. So GitHub Copilot they have the slogan of AI pair programmer. So if you have the subscription, I highly recommend. It's really a productivity booster. Question for the audience, have you experimented with Copilot? Yes? How do you like it?
Yes. Yes, I did use it, and I wouldn't say I expected more, let's say.
Okay, that's fair. Yep.
Yes. It's kind of uses. You have to be really specific with it to be able to get a benefit. Otherwise, it will be just like generating things from your own code, and it will just be very repetitive and uncreative, let's say.
Yep, that is fair. Let's hope that the OpenAI working with GitHub can learn from these user experiences and evolve over time. Because one good thing about ChatGPT is that it is advancing like with a rapid speed. Week over week, month over month, we see a lot of changes already. Yep. Another application that I commonly use is to automate tasks. This one I also just took as a screenshot from somewhere on the internet. Someone trying to automate a repetitive task within Google Spreadsheet. Easy to do. In the past, you need to write up the formula. Now, just ask for, give me the formula. And most of the time, it just works fine. Again, question for the audience. What tasks have you tried to automate with such technology, and how's your experience with it?
Hey, I saw that there's a partnership between Notion and ChatGPT. So I saw that it automates by writing a whole article about a specific library that I'm using, and it makes a whole tutorial about it. It's really cool.
Very nice. Very nice. Others?
Anybody else? Why are you so shy today? Jesus.
Maybe I'm too intimidating. I don't know.
You're scared of AI, okay.
ChatGPT is very intimidating today. So this is a screenshot from Microsoft. In their Teams application, if you subscribe to the premium user, now you get the benefits of analysis. They take transcripts of what's being discussed in a meeting. There are suggested notes and tasks. For someone that spends between 30 and 40 hours in meetings each week, such applications are lifesavers. So why do we have meetings? We want to arrive at a conclusion. We want to share some information. Eventually, we want to decide on what do we do to take the project to the next step. So assigning action item and owners is one crucial step that often can get ignored. But if we don't do that, then what's the point of the meeting? We're going to do something, make some decisions, document them, and share with a broader audience after each meeting. So such applications can help us enforce that we take notes, take good notes, assign actions to people, and then move the project forward. So such applications will help us run more efficient meetings. And a lot of these meetings are so expensive. If you think about 12 busy executives in a 1-hour meeting, that's very expensive. We want to make good use of the time and bring business value out of having such meetings. So by having an AI-empowered assistant in such meetings that help us keep track of things, write the agenda, write the notes, share with a broader audience afterwards. Maybe later on, they can also add automation to say, help me keep time in this section. Everybody's supposed to speak equal amounts or something like that. Then it can really make our lives easier. I'm glad to see that applications like this is already embedded in tools that we're familiar with. So this is Teams. I think applications like Otter.ai also offer similar features. I'm sure there are thousands of startups from everywhere around the world trying to embed ChatGPT into tools that we're familiar with, like Notion, like Spreadsheet, like Teams and Word and Outlook. Do you want to take the microphone? Yeah.
I just imagine that in this case, Microsoft is collecting even more data now because it's like making transcripts of everything.
Right. So I'm sure Microsoft has ways of isolating those data and respect user privacy. If you think about Outlook today, they already see the entire organization's email. So a lot of the confidential information is already there. I'm sure there are regulations about protecting user privacy in there. Actually, before I move on, I'd like to highlight the section here. So this is a view that I personally am a big fan of. This one, I think, is highlighting what amount of time each person is speaking. As a female working in the tech industry, I care a lot about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So it has been shared by research in the past that females tend to speak less and are interrupted more during meetings. I'm very eager to see such a view and really visualize, is that true in the organization that I work in, and what are some of the ways that we can help everybody get equal chance of giving input and also influence the decisions at the organization. But as the audience has correctly pointed out, there are limitations of this technology today. One typical example, which has been quite obvious when Google tried to announce its similar product, is that the chatbots can give you wrong answers. And also, it's hard to tell by the way that the chatbot speaks. It can speak very confidently about something that makes zero sense. There's also repetition, so overuse of certain words or certain language patterns. So if you ask it to write a short essay, it's probably okay. But if you ask it for a few versions, you begin to see, okay, this is from ChatGPT. So after a while, we begin to have our own detection. So yes. So that's definitely drawbacks. It's also very sensitive to the prompt. Therefore, it leads to a kind of a new job like prompt engineering is not a thing. So based on how you write the prompt, the chatbot can give you very different answers, sometimes contradicting answers. Last December, I was at the conference NeurIPS in New Orleans, when one session of the talk is AI sentient? This obviously is a question that evokes a lot of emotion. So the speaker gave an example like this. Somebody asked the chatbot, do you have feelings? And the chatbot basically said yes, and gave all kinds of answers related to yes, I have feelings, I care about this and that. Okay, but then a differently engineered prompt led the chatbot to give the complete opposite answer. Okay, so is the chatbot sentient? Not quite yet. It's just good at giving a consistent looking answer. That said, there's also a lack of reasoning. Like the example I was giving, by your prompt, you can lead the ChatGPT to give you contradicting answers. So this indicates that behind the scene, it is not making reasoning. It is just trying to write something that seems to make sense. It probably makes sense because the training data that ChatGPT is trained on is based on human writing. And think about how we talk, right? Whether we know the answer or not, we're gonna give you something. So that in my mind, that kind of makes sense. So for now, what ChatGPT gives back as an answer, I wouldn't consider it as the same quality as your Google search result. Sometimes it can be great, and sometimes it looks great, but it's actually completely nonsense. That said, a lot of advancements are happening in the field right now. So I wouldn't just consider something that's not working quite well today as the final outcome. Maybe 3 to 6 months later, the next version will greatly improve it. So for education, we can already think about a lot of the applications where it can help us. It can help explain concepts. It can give examples to help us deepen the understanding. We can have conversation going deeper and deeper in a specific topic rather than just search. You will have to reformulate your query each time. The chatbot will retain the session and retain what knowledge you have exchanged already. There's also, if you're doing coding or anything data science or programming, the code walkthrough with ChatGPT will be super helpful. Another application is ideation. If you need to, let's say, participate in a hackathon, you can even ask ChatGPT, what do you suggest as a good hackathon idea? There's also the common use case of copywriting. If you write essays, I mean, many of us probably tried that. Very interestingly, an anecdote. A few days ago, ChatGPT, the interface just got timed out very often. Regardless of what I try, it just got too busy. Coincidentally, this was the same time that big tech was doing performance reviews. So our hypothesis is that many tech company employees are using ChatGPT to write their self-reviews, peer reviews, and perf reviews. I cannot validate if that is true, but I can say that I did use ChatGPT to polish some of the words that I've written in perf season, yes. And then emotional support. It's a chatbot. So it's very interesting that I look at different people's chat sessions. I have a colleague that had a nickname for ChatGPT. So they're starting to build a relationship with the chatbot and ask questions in very human, nice ways. Could you please be my tutor for this language? I mean, that's a very nice way. Hi, Chatty. How are you today?
Especially if you pair it with a voice that reads the text. I mean, I can see it already.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, question. Can we throw the microphone?
So in terms of ownership, you just mentioned that like there are already people using ChatGPT to write their texts. Do you know if there are already like improvements or changes made to ChatGPT? Because I think like the actual problem of who owns the text that are written by ChatGPT is like becoming a big struggle now. Are there like solutions so that we can actually have sources of where the knowledge is from?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I don't know if I have the answer to that, but this is an active research area that a lot of people are thinking about. So the text-related questions is already hard to solve. Imagine about the imagery in art. So we know of websites that learn styles from publicly available images and then neural style transfer. So this is not really in ChatGPT, but then this is also a way of taking information from artists, taking the creative ideas and making that available to others. If they offer an API, who owns that? The artist that they learn from or the person that built the AI? So that is still an open debate. It's a gray area since the technology is advancing faster than we can make regulations, but it's also interesting times. So we did mention copywriting. Now there's also detectors for ChatGPT written material. So if you are tempted to write essays with ChatGPT, be careful because there are detections out there. Before I move on to talk about using ChatGPT in the line of work as a software engineer or software engineering management, I'd like to ask the audience, what are ways that you've tried to apply ChatGPT or any large language model in your education? Yep, we throw the...
When I see AI in the line of work of software engineering, what I would think is that it's meant for like assistance, right? Say, for example, you don't know the answer when your peer is not around, that you would use OpenAI. But it's also very scary because it knows a lot. And you would think maybe someday they will replace us in the line of work of software engineering. But what I also think is with software engineering and AI, like who checks if what AI puts out is actually correct, right?
Definitely a very valid concern.
I thought it was interesting with the GitHub Copilot as well, is that it can really easily write a function for you. Like you can make a comment and say, write this function, and it will make a function that does the thing you want. But I think you have to really validate if it actually does what you want it to do, because they can make a similar function that looks to be doing what you're doing, but might not have all the edge cases that you wanted. And I also noticed that even though we have quite strict rules on how to code, within that I have kind of my own handwriting in code again, and it was very disturbing for me to have a function like I could see that it's not mine as well. Like it looked different. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I used ChatGPT because I think like the benefit of ChatGPT right now is that it actually can summarize kind of all the knowledge which is already there. So I think it's like a good start if you want to start with something, just like print out all the knowledge. Either it's like in a literature research, just give me like the current overview of X, Y, Z. And then like from this knowledge gain, you can like start creating your own ideas because your own ideas are not published yet, at least.
Exactly.
If I understand it correctly, it's based on the data which it can find on the internet and maybe later transcribe with books and etc. But that assumes that the data is, so if bad quality data goes in, then the results will be less accurate. Is that correct?
So it does depend on the quality data you throw at it. So for these applications, we're talking about the vanilla version of ChatGPT. So the training data they have is the training data they have. We don't really have visibility into what's the training data they've used. However, if needed, if you have access to proprietary data that you know is of higher quality, you can fine-tune the model based on your data. So this can probably bring more relevance to the problem you're asking the ChatGPT.
Does that mean in the long term, if you have, for instance, if you gather a bunch of software engineers who has a lot of experience, thus they will be providing quality data and quality feedback, will the model actually get as accurate as those people's knowledge together?
I would think so. That said, not all of the knowledge will be easily expressed in either natural language or coding, which I will go into. So to explain why I don't think ChatGPT will replace software engineering as a profession anytime soon.
Thank you.
Right?
Last thing that I wanted to point out from the learning perspective is that I imagine that for a school like ours, Codam has something very powerful, is that it's combining two people to sit together and explain something to the other. So one gets the role of a teacher and the other is like learning from that person. So soft skills in that case would be that the person is actually learning to communicate and explain something. And now you might be more eager to go to ChatGPT that explains to a 9-year-old how something works. And then I feel like less people will be interacting in this case, learning from each other in this case.
Yeah, that's a great point as well. So no amount of machine learning or AI is capable of really understanding human emotions today. So having that emotional intelligence built through true collaboration with your peers is something that I don't think will be replaced by AI anytime soon. And that is really important. So for the people in the audience, if you have the opportunity of interacting with your peers in person, that's still the preferred way of learning. And it's more fun as well. So why I don't think AI will replace my job anytime soon. What do engineering functions do? We can start by saying, we write code. Okay, but then why do we write code? We may build software systems, but then why do we build software systems? We build software systems and operate them to deliver some value, to achieve business goals. And how do we achieve these business goals? By addressing user pain points. It's so painful for someone that they're willing to pay for. Or by giving pleasure that they're willing to pay for, like scrolling through endless short videos. And we achieve this by working closely with many others, sometimes other engineering teams, and often other functions like product managers, designers, sales, marketing, and a variety of other functions. So this is where the human elements also come in. So if we really work backwards from achieving business goals, the engineering function does a variety of things at different levels. So understanding customer needs, usually we don't associate this with just the engineering function. Another function, maybe product managers, maybe user research. But then for people building pretty advanced software like mapping, we do have to understand what is the use case. So if I'm building for an automaker, a car OEM, then what do they intend to provide to their end consumer, the driver? Do I understand how they want to incorporate the map features that I produce into the infotainment system in the car? What look and feel would make sense to this particular OEM versus another OEM? So all these decisions would impact how the engineering teams think and plan our work to deliver value for our customers. So we start by understanding customer needs. That can be a very acute pain point, or it can be seeking pleasure, like scrolling through the short videos. So after understanding user pain points or user needs, we come to the stage of anticipating market trends, regulation, technology advancements to think about what is needed, what the technology is capable today versus in the near future, and think about what are things that we can bring to the market that we're uniquely qualified to do, that the users would want to pay for, and then we can build with good return on investment. So we identify the product opportunities based on all these information that can come in to us through a variety of channels. Some of these would be just sitting in a user research lab and look at how the users interacted with the car. Yes, it is possible to do a recording, but then how hard would it be to really capture all the fine nuance of the user interaction in words or just in images? Some of this, you have to be in there, ask the right questions at the right time to really understand the user. So after identifying product opportunities, it becomes the invention stage. What are the products that we want to bring to the market that address their pain points and also would be good for us to build? After the invention stage, we design the solution. So now this is where the traditional thinking about software engineering comes in. Before we do coding, there's something called solution design or system design. This usually is a document many, many pages long with diagrams, comments, from multiple people across the organization. As of today, I've yet to see a good system design document written by ChatGPT or a good diagram. It's not quite there yet. We're not saying that we cannot learn, but this is one area that I personally haven't seen good applications from ChatGPT. It's still a student at this stage. And then after we've designed the solution, where we've validated several options, we've made trade-offs and decided on the roadmap, then we start building. This is when the larger projects are broken down to sprint-level tasks and then assigned to individual engineers. Somebody will claim a ticket from Jira and then start coding. This is the part where I think the applications we have looked at with Copilot, with other aided support, we can code faster and get better ideas. But the parts above will be harder for ChatGPT to help with. And then we build, we operate, we deliver the product, we operate, we monitor the performance over time and keep iterating. Some of these parts AI can help with. It can help with ideation. So let me throw out a concrete example. We're using machine learning to build what's called a speed product. The speed product will tell you what is the legal speed in this particular stretch of the road and this particular lane based on your vehicle type. If you are a large truck driving on the right-hand side lane, then speed limit is 50 kilometers per hour, something like that. So how can ChatGPT help us do this? We asked ChatGPT, what is the regulation regarding speed limit setting from all kinds of countries? We asked for 10 reasons. Then we asked for, give me 20 more, give me 20 more. So we kept going until the answers got repetitive. So why are we doing this? We're trying to build machine learning models with the right features that can help us predict the speed limit. And in the feature engineering stage, it's good that we get a broad range of ideas and see what makes sense. Of course, out of the 100 ideas that ChatGPT generated, 30 of them are completely useless. But the remaining contain good value. There are even ones that you would think about, it makes sense once you see it, but it's hard to come up with before you see it. So there are applications like this that we can use ChatGPT as an aid to get started with a project idea. It's not going to give us perfect answers. It's not even going to give us all good answers all the time. There are cases where we asked ChatGPT and got nothing useful in return. Another example would be, I'm trying to find a name for all the teams that report to me in a joint name. And I've asked ChatGPT in 10 occasions. So far, I didn't like any of the suggestions, so still trying. And then the brainstorming stage is another similar example where the machine learning, even feature engineering, or coming up with models can be suggested by ChatGPT. Note-taking, that would be the application from Microsoft Teams. Copy editing, coding, automating manual tasks, coaching. So this is an interesting one. So a lot of the new people managers in software engineering teams usually come from a technical background. They were great engineers. They're great at what they do. They can lead the people from the technical perspective. When they become people managers, there are new skills they would need to pick up. And then we realized ChatGPT is actually not a bad place to start. You can ask ChatGPT, what's the most effective way to conduct a weekly one-on-one with my direct report? And it gives quite reasonable answers. You can also ask a question like, what are ways of building an accountability culture in the team? And again, very reasonable suggestions. So I wouldn't say we rely on just ChatGPT as the only way to educate new skills in the team. But armed with other tools like in-person training, dedicated workshops, having ChatGPT as a coach where the new manager can go to at any time and just ask a question without feeling being judged, that is quite helpful. So some things AI is not that great at yet. We'll see how it evolves. But as of today, I don't think understanding user pain points, especially on the deeper level, is easily captured by any form of AI yet. The product invention stage, I don't think I've seen any decent full inventions. They can help us brainstorm, but the ideas usually need to be synthesized and then combined by a human. The high-level solution design, like the system design document that I would love for ChatGPT to write for me, not there yet. Direct influence. So this would be the human-to-human interaction to influence from the side. How do you work with cross-functional teams? How do you work with another team that has a different kind of roadmap than yours, but you have dependency on them, they have dependency on a third team. So how do you bring all that together to coordinate a large organization to move in the same direction? ChatGPT can give coaching, but it's not quite there. And people management is another one. So soft skills, ChatGPT can give us hints, but we still need to practice them. It is one thing to know what's the right thing to say. It's quite another thing to actually do it in the moment. So a lot of the soft skills are really a skill by practice, not by knowledge. Yes, it can tell us what to say, but they can't make us do it. Maybe in the future, we'll see. So overall, I would say ChatGPT can be super helpful. It's good at certain things. It's bad at some other things. It's getting there pretty rapidly as well. It's good to add AI to our toolkit and help us with both learning, with productivity, creativity, and so on. I would love to hear from the audience after the talk on what are the creative ways you've come up of using ChatGPT in your daily life, in your education, and in the career. So I would say AI is now empowering education, it's empowering software engineering, and it's empowering you and me. With that, I conclude the talk today.
Thank you so much, Yu. I would like to open the floor for questions. I would like to remind the people from home that they can include their questions in the link in the comments. There is a link to Slido. But before I kick it off, actually, with the questions in the audience, I have a question. So we are an educational institution. We are like trying to teach the students, or make them learn software engineering, both painful moments with the ChatGPT3. So if you would be the head of studies at Codam, how would you embrace, deny, what would you do, with ChatGPT3?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say in exams, don't use it. But in our daily study, I consider it as a very powerful tool to help the students learn faster. If it can help the students debug or code faster and learn faster, why not? It's a tool. But ultimately, the skill still needs to be mastered by the student. When I was describing knowledge versus practice, it's good that ChatGPT can give us the knowledge, but can we practice when we need it? And that's the skill we need to learn.
Yes, exactly. This is some things that we are currently discussing with the team. And I think throughout the entire 42 network, it's a topic. So, but there are different fronts. Some of them are pro, some of them are against that, we have to block it from the older school. So keep you posted, guys, in case if anything gets out of it. Okay, so the first question. Yeah.
I would be interested to hear what do you think is the role of now a regular search engine and also just a website. How does this change with the coming of GPT?
Right, that's a great question that both Google and Microsoft are thinking hard on as well. So as of today, the capabilities of ChatGPT cannot replace a search engine. It doesn't really tell right from wrong. There are good examples of when it's right. There's also a very sorry example when Google tried to show the same. So I would say both companies, I'm sure, are assembling huge teams of very talented engineers to solve the problem. Maybe it's on the user experience side. It's good that it's going to make a suggestion. It's even better if the AI can tell if it's not having the right confidence and then fall back to the search engine result. But that's not the official solution. I'm sure very smart people at Google and Microsoft will solve this over time.
And what about like a website? Will this still have a place? Of course, yeah, for as a tool. But how does that look?
Sorry, I'm not sure I captured the question. How do you apply the...
Let's say that if I'm able to search for things and I don't need to actually visit the website to find the information, yeah, is that something you have anything to say about?
That's a great question. So that was a question even before ChatGPT. So Google and Microsoft Bing has the feature of the answers. So it would take a snippet from the website and already give you the answer when you search for it. Then the user doesn't even need to navigate to the website. This, of course, hurts content producers. And there are now regulations that prevents Google from doing that. I'm sure similar regulations will be coming out based on these.
So there's been some talk and people saying that ChatGPT and the up and comings of a lot of AI right now in general can be compared to the start of the internet and how massive and society changing it can be. Would you agree with that statement?
Personally, I do. I've yet to see how many of these applications would land in a concrete way. I'm glad to see that Microsoft already made this appear in a lot of the applications that I interact with. And so far, I'm seeing promising results. Not quite there, but quite promising. Also in Teams, an example would be, I noticed that there's a function where it monitors, it's like a speech coach. I have the tendency of speaking pretty fast when I get excited. And the speech coach has, on more than one occasion, reminded me to please slow down. So that's helpful. So I'd love to see more concrete applications that really impact our daily lives in all kinds of ways to come up. I think in the next couple of years, we'll be seeing a lot of that.
Yeah, that was my next question, actually. If you had any ideas of things how it would change the society we live in, if that makes sense. But I guess just things like that.
Right. I can have my personal opinion like many of you. So
Yeah.
We're seeing exactly the same information. We're taking our own experiences. I would say it's going to aid human in more ways than we're anticipating today. So coaching is an example that happens to be on top of my mind. The speech coach, or in the future, it can also analyze what we are saying, the way we are saying it. So an example that's kind of happening this week would be when I give redirecting feedback, when I give reinforcing feedback, what is the pace that I'm speaking? What is the tone? Do I seem happy? Do I seem angry? Maybe I'm not angry, but the voice made me sound angry. Then this is something the coach can just remind me in the moment. And then it's very easy for me to make that change right away. Imagine for this to happen by a human coach. I think that's just harder. So a lot of the applications like this will be more subtle and embedded in how we're interacting with our tools. Even if it's in-person meeting, I think it's pretty hard for someone to immediately pull me aside and say, you sound angry and you need to slow down. But in remote meetings with these Teams or Zoom or Google Meet, it's very easy to add an AI assistant there and help us do all kinds of things. Can monitor how we speak. Are we spending airtime equitably among the team members? Or maybe they can suggest different ways of interaction. If a few people are dominating the airtime, maybe they can suggest a different tool. And also the AI assistant can help us keep time. I don't know if you guys experience the group presentations where each person is supposed to speak 1 minute and then move on to the next section, and somebody usually speaks for 10 minutes and refuses to shut up. So maybe the AI assistant would be a gentler way to remind them. So a lot of applications that I'm super excited about.
Actually, I was if you could give the microphone to Milan, because Milan was he raised his hand, and he was also one of the participants at the hackathon this weekend. And that hackathon was also focused on ChatGPT3 plus other AIs, okay? Would you want to explain what idea you worked on? And maybe another application that you actually liked from all the pitching that you heard?
Okay. We worked on a tool for lawyers to help them with their work. Because basically what also really surprised me, we had a lawyer in the team, so he told us what a problem was that he was having in his working days, is that they have a question from the client, and then they just spend 2 days searching all their documents in their email to find where the answer is of that question. And then those people get paid 300 euros an hour to just search through documents. So that blew my mind, like how in these days is that possible? So we try to help them by like all the documents and emails would be transferred to a database, and then documents would be sorted, and like it's really in one view. You can see, okay, this is the case, these are all the documents, this is the order, because sometimes documents get other names, or they get sent in emails. They talk about the document in February, and it's dealing about something in December, and so that would be really organized. And then also you can ask real directed questions about the case, like is there a cease and desist letter on this product in Sweden? And then the site would say yes, and you can find the answer here and here. So there's also the proof. So that's basically what we tried to build. It was a bit too ambitious to totally get it working, but I think it was a real interesting exercise, and it was an awesome hackathon, and to see all the other stuff that people came up with was really great and inspiring.
Is there like one like more impactful that you actually found over there? Do you remember any like?
Well, I actually think that our one would be one of the most impactful, but like the winners, they had the best presentation, I guess. There was one where you could talk with a person that has died. It's kind of like the Black Mirror episode you might have seen. And in the presentation, it was really powerful, the way you saw it. And I was like, okay, if I would lose somebody close to me, I would really like to have this. It can help you cope with all the grief. Another winner had made an app where you can make a picture of a document that you get from the government or whatever, and then it will translate it to easier language and also give you actionable advice, like call this number and say this and this.
I love this application, to be honest. I was like, oh, all those letters from Belastingdienst, from the taxes, sometimes you're totally confused as an international person. What do I have to do? Talk to me English. Yes.
And they started out making it just for people who had trouble reading, but in the end they pivoted to like everybody, because also in the audience, a lot of people were like, I need this.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so that was really great. But my question to you was, or do you want to say something, have you noticed an increase in productivity at TomTom?
Great question. So first, the ideas that you described in the hackathon, love them. A lot of these can totally be startup ideas, like the legal document search and then summarization. It is completely a valid startup idea. Maybe somebody wants to double down on the effort immediately. So the application, the productivity gain at TomTom, I think, will be coming our way. So some of the ways that we're starting with this would be application of Copilot or use ChatGPT for ideation. So this has already started. We're also experimenting with some ideas of structuring information from unstructured text that used to take a lot of the you write scripts and then you write pipelines that kept ingesting new information and then structure them. So now we're doing this with ChatGPT quite successfully already. Another way that we're experimenting with is to look at the social media and media feeds and do summarization from it. So from social media, one application we're looking at is to look at traffic and road information. So some stretch of the road has road work going on. Usually local government would publish either in their own website or in their social media feeds that this is happening. So this is a feed of information that we can pick up from ChatGPT and publish in our application.
And do you think TomTom is like one of the front runners already trying to incorporate these techniques, or do you think many of the big companies are doing this?
I would say the front runners would be OpenAI, the people that are inventing these models. So for a majority of the users of AI, especially these days, I see the trend not as reinventing these very large, very expensive models, but to use them in creative ways. So the ways that happens in the hackathon, meaning we combine multiple AI APIs and make them work together to achieve a goal and improve a certain task and improve people's lives in a very tangible way in a specific domain. This is where I see a lot of the creativity to come in and really to impact our lives in more tangible ways. And TomTom is one of the companies that's also in this field, where we look at using ChatGPT in creative ways in our current workflow, but also to fine-tune the model with proprietary data that we already have to make something that's unique for TomTom.
And my last question, like this productivity increase, how would that translate to the hiring process? Because you can say, okay, now we can hire less people because we already are so productive. Or you can say we have to hire more people because we have so many more paths we can try to go.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the ChatGPT came out, I think, last December. So it's still early in the game. We're definitely seeing productivity gains. But like you said, these can open up new opportunities. If we identify these new opportunity areas that have a high ROI, I would say it's going to create more jobs instead of saying, oh, we just hire less people and aim for smaller things. Because the company also has the ambition to keep growing and bring more valuable products to the world. And the better we can assemble ourselves and use productivity tools like AI to enable us to do that, the better, right? We don't have to be limited by number of people. It's ways that we can create value for the world that really matters.
Yeah, that's nice. Okay, then I have one more question. Because there are new job openings, but we are basically training for the older job openings. Should we, as students, try to teach ourselves a certain skill set or a new direction? Or, yeah, what's your advice to us?
The hackathon ideas, I think, is exactly in line with how I think the trend is moving. We don't have to be the builders of these models. There are a few large companies that lay the foundation. Now it's the application phase, where we either take the vanilla version of it and apply in new domains in creative ways, or we secure proprietary data set that's of higher quality, specialized in a certain domain, like the legal documents is a great example of that, and make an application that's useful. So it doesn't have to start from scratch or cost a lot of money. It is in smart combination of all these ideas. So you guys are already working on the right solutions.
Anybody else?
I was wondering, what was your idea about if there is going to be a replacement of the software engineer, like as a job, in favor of AI, and the software engineer is going to be replaced more by a prompt engineer, for example, in the future, not now. I know now we're not quite at the level, but what do you think about the future?
Right. So I think prompt engineering can get us only so far. The higher levels of thinking, currently I don't see a hint of that today, like reasoning. One thing that I usually pay attention to would be the solution design. So are we devising the right solution that solves the business problem? I've yet to see AI even get close to anything like that. So the ideation tasks that we've thrown to ChatGPT doesn't even return good results yet. Because I think for this one, it requires a higher level of thinking. It also requires a certain level of abstraction that I haven't seen in ChatGPT as of today. And I don't know how soon it's getting there, but it's quite far, at least in this subdomain.
But do you think in the future there is going to be like a replacement, or at least like a resizing of the software engineer, like as a work industry?
I would say the skill set might shift. So in the past, there may be a larger groups of people writing more the boilerplate code or writing something that's more generic. Let's say if we build an application in the past, we probably need to write everything from scratch. But over time, new frameworks appear. So writing the same web app now takes one engineer instead of 5. So things like this will keep evolving, but then now we have way more mobile engineers or web application engineers because we have way more application that's enabled by this. So I wouldn't worry just yet about our jobs being taken by AI. It is in the value creation step where the human intelligence start to kick in. And I have yet to see AI being very smart with that.
Okay, thank you.
There's a question here.
Yeah, you talked about places where AI isn't yet, but are there also places where you think that because that are just limited by what AI can be, like with logical reasoning and.
Sorry, I didn't quite capture the question.
Do you think there is, in some cases, a upper limit that AI can reach?
That's, I guess, a billion-dollar question that I don't have the answer to. A lot of people are actively working in the general AI domain. I know DeepMind is one of those places where such research is happening. But how far this can go, I guess the sky is the limit. It's hard for me to say.
Okay.
One thing which we might have forgotten to speak about is that these models do not say the truth, right? Or in many cases, they don't. So I see down the line, if many people use this, especially early in their education, I see slight problems with people not being critical enough. And once that happens, of course, democracy has several flaws, which this can open, do you think that companies or governments should step into and try to control some aspects of how we use this technology? I'm asking mostly because governments react very, very slow to change. Meanwhile, public schools are essentially very tied to governments. Thus, the question remains, who should step into and educate governments and schools how to use this technology, and what are the drawbacks down the line which might happen?
That's a great question. I don't know if I'm qualified to answer, but here's just some personal thinking. Regulation will always be slow to catch up to technology. So today we're thinking about AI offered answers may be incorrect, but if we dial back 20 years, maybe 20 years, it's also search engine. Is search engine always returning the best result? Is an accurate result? Is based on some website, but is it trustworthy? It's hard to say. So the same problem actually is not new. Regulation will be slow, so how do we apply the technology in smart ways, in suitable occasions, is always something that's pretty difficult to tackle. On the one hand, I don't see us being able to effectively block ChatGPT access from anyone, actually. Anyone with a smartphone with an internet connection can still connect. So I've seen that some schools try to block the access from the school's internet. But if you turn off the Wi-Fi and use your 5G, you get ChatGPT anyway. So this, I don't know, blocking is the right strategy, but the right guidance on how to use the technology. What is the drawback to make the students aware instead of saying, you cannot touch this, I think might be a more effective strategy.
Yes, thank you very much.
I am thinking about the usage of it for learning. I think I'm all prone to the usage with work. You'll be on a level that you can actually understand more or like make use of whatever you find on ChatGPT. But while you're learning, in my opinion, it kind of limits the creativity of the learning. So you end up just learning whatever is being invented. You don't think out of the box. You just think out of the box of someone else's, basically. Do you think that it's better to use it after you reach a certain limit of knowledge that it just helps you to be better and come up with better products, or solutions, etc., than just be dependent on it while you're learning. And then it kind of shapes the way your learning path is. Like, it's just, I'm in a dilemma.
Right, that's a great question. So as you're describing the learning process, in my mind, I'm playing an example of artist. So I don't do any art whatsoever, but I heard that a lot of the artists start by copying the masters and learning from what has been out there. And then they get creative and invent something new. So I don't see this as a one or the other. Maybe art works in similar ways. Maybe the human brain works in similar ways. We see what has been done, and then we bring our own creativity to the table. So definitely be careful about not being shaped from what the one chatbot tells us to do, because we already know it comes with lots of limitation and drawback. And it's to be constantly aware of that, and don't take this as the final answer. It's one suggestion out of many. Then it is up to us to apply our judgment and how much we want to trust this versus our own thinking versus some other resources. All right.
There is one question from the people online. Do you think AI is a thing we can afford in the context of climate crisis and resources scarcity? How much does it cost to maintain it and make it grow?
Yeah, that's definitely a great question. So as I was mentioning, $6.5 million to train at once is expensive. That said, if we put this in line with the other spending and then look at what is the ROI, so this is what we call opportunity sizing and effort sizing. So for this, maybe just the environmental impact sizing trade-off. Based on what the technology is capable of giving down the line, and then how much money we're investing in it. There is a tendency in the tech companies to just compete with each other and go for bigger and bigger models, well, that takes even more GPUs to train. So where does the curve start to level off, where the marginal gain is not as much? That's definitely something we should pay attention to. But the good news is that fine-tuning a model using ChatGPT's capabilities based on your proprietary data set is not that expensive. This one is actually within reach of a lot of the smaller companies or even some individuals. So this is a venue that I think for people interested would be worth looking into. So using the vanilla GPT alone is not that expensive. It's not prohibitively expensive. And doing fine-tuning based on data sets that you have access to that other people don't can potentially give a competitive advantage. And it's another thing that's worth looking into. Retraining from scratch is not something that I would recommend.
Do we have any other questions from the audience? No? Then I guess we reached the end.
Great, wonderful. Thank you
you
so much for the interaction.